Welcome to the I'm Book podcast. I'm April O'Leary, and this is the YouTube version of our podcast. To get the audio version, you can hop on over to Spotify or anywhere that you consume audio podcasts. We are going to jump into some really cool content, so stay tuned for our next guest. We look forward to connecting with you, and be sure to subscribe. And to start your author adventure, hop on over to o'learypublishing.com, where you can map out the entire process and see what writing a book would look like for you. Let's get started. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the I'm Book podcast. And I am here today with Matt Treacy. And we were just laughing because he's actually all the way around the world. And for him, it is morning. And for me, it is evening. So thank you for getting up early to be on this podcast with me today.
No dramas at all. Pleasure to be here. I'm a bit of an early riser anyway, so it suits me fine.
All right, perfect. I love that. Me too. Even though I was looking for maybe I needed one more cup of coffee this afternoon and I missed my window. But anyway, so one of the things that Matt is here to talk to us about today is email automation. He's an author. And as you heard in his bio, he's done a lot of fabulous things. And for most authors, the creativity of writing a book and putting together thoughts into a format that's readable is not actually the really difficult part. Not to take anything away from authors, but it's what happens after the book and how to build an audience and how to use email in a profitable and productive way that is a mystery to most people. But Matt's here to talk with us about that. So how did you get into using email automation in your business life before becoming an author? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question, but basically, yeah, my marketing career began when I was over in the States quite a few years ago now. And I started working with a guy who was actually an author himself. I was living in San Francisco. I was reading his blog, and he kind of gave me an opportunity to work with him. And look, I did all sorts of stuff over the years, like tech adjacent online business stuff, like software as a service, e-commerce, even helped launch a hedge fund. And you'd learn a lot of different digital marketing tactics over the years. But, you know, for me, the one that stood out as being the most effective and the highest leverage for a lot of reasons was email marketing. So, you know, it would have been 5 or 6 years ago, if I look at the whole career, that I went really deep into email. And I was like, okay, this is where I can really focus on being the guy. And like I said, I did that for a few different industries, but I mean, my bread and butter has always been authors. I mean, that first guy I worked with was an author. I've had, I kind of had different authors I worked with over the years, and it was only pretty recently that I really doubled down on that, and I started doing email marketing specifically for nonfiction authors and helping them make sure that the people who read their books and subscribe to their email list aren't falling into all of the typical problems that people tend to fall into with email, which we can get into. Just helping them manage it better, and more than anything, take it to the next level. So a lot of people know the basic stuff they should be doing with email, or they have a broad idea of what they should be doing with email, but they don't really know what an advanced email setup looks like or what goes into that.
Well, let's start from the very beginning, because I don't want to make any assumptions for anyone listening here about when you said most people know what to do with email. I know plenty of authors that do not know what to do with email, and they get set up with, let's say, their first free chapter opt-in, and they get an email autoresponder set up, and then that's the end of the story.
Okay.
So from a very, very basic first, kindergarten level email marketing setup, what do you recommend? What are some of the mistakes people make, or some of the things that you found that people assume are true and they're not true?
Mm-hmm.
And things, maybe ideas we need to abandon when it comes to email marketing?
Oh, that's a good one. Hey, I tell you what, if you're setting up an opt-in with a free chapter and you're setting up an autoresponder, that there's different levels of beginner, right? I'd say that's towards the more advanced side of the beginner level. That's a lot of people aren't even doing that, right? So
Okay.
taking it back to the kindergarten level, I would say, hey, if there's one shift that you can make that'll transform your email at this early stage, it's don't spam people. I know it sounds obvious, but don't always, every email you send, provide value, right? If you just make that little switch in your mind from, hey, I've got to sell to these people. Hey, I've got to sell books to these people. I've got to sell courses. I've got to do whatever. Don't think about that stuff at all. Just think, okay, this person's read my book. They've come into my world that I'm creating here, because this is what it is. It's a really powerful way for authors to deliver narrative. I feel like that's one of the most, there's a lot of overlooked things about email marketing, but I think for authors specifically, there's no other place where you can actually like deliver ideas over a long period of time and shape a narrative. You can't do that on social media. You know, you can't do it on your Amazon author bio. There's no other channel that you own the data, right? And there's really high engagement and people are active. It's great for that. So yeah, I'd say don't spam people, treat them with a lot of respect. I always say every time you send an email, educate, inspire, or entertain. If you're not doing one of those three things every time you send an email, take a good long hard look at yourself and and send an email that is going to do one of those things.
It's funny that you say that because we always talk about those three things with regards to books, is that
Okay.
people read for those reasons. People read books for those reasons. So if you're not educating, entertaining, or inspiring somebody, you're not going to have a book that does very well. And there's a lot of authors that we found that it takes time to get used to understanding how to deliver a narrative in that way. Because generally speaking, most people think of themselves and they think about what they want to say. And we call it, it's a great first draft because it's all self-focused. So it's shifting the narrative away from yourself into the mind of who's reading it, why are they reading it, why do they want to be here, why am I the person to deliver that? But so if you have a book that's someone's on your email list and you're creating this value, so let's assume that you know how to create the value, you're educating people or entertaining or inspiring, and you're regular about your delivery, I would say, is that something you recommend as a key? Delivering emails on a schedule, not spamming them, but so people understand that your emails are going to show up every so often. What's the number of emails you should be sending, let's say, per month?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like all of these things, it does depend. And, I'd say for authors, less can be more. So look, just to keep it easy for yourself, because I know a lot of authors are, trying to do everything themselves. If you could commit to sending 2 emails a month, whether that's a newsletter or an autoresponder sequence you've set up that drips them out twice a month, that's enough to touch base with the audience, let them know that you're there. And that it can actually be more effective than sending 5 emails a week, because if those 2 emails that you're sending each month are really insightful, really valuable, and people get a lot out of them, they will look forward to opening those emails, right? And that's exactly the type of thing that you want to set up. So, I mean, at an early stage, we're talking beginner here, the thing that you really want to focus on in the beginning is increasing your engagement, right? So engagement's a bit of an umbrella term in email marketing, and it's becoming harder to measure with all of the changes in analytics that are coming out these days. It used to be like your open rate or your click-through rate on each email that you send, right? So I think there's like an industry-wide average open rate of like 14%, which is abysmal. You should be aiming for a lot more than that. And I guarantee if you're doing one of those 3 things every time you send an email and you're not over spamming people, you're not sending too frequently that it exhausts people. Let's just say you send an email, I don't know, every week or twice a week to answer your original question. This is a nice place to start. And you're making sure that you're progressing the series of ideas that you're showing to people. So exactly like what you were saying before about putting on that writer hat when they're writing the book and they need to do that reader edit, the essential readerly edit. That same thing should apply to the email sequence you built. So go away as if you're writing another short book, right? It's the exact same thing, except it's a more personal conversation, even again than the book, because it's one-on-one. You're coming into their inbox and you're really talking to them one-on-one.
So would you recommend, and I know that I've done it both ways before. I know authors who have done it both ways, and I've had, an author business. I was a life coach prior to having a publishing company, and I've used programs from as simple as MailChimp all the way up to Infusionsoft and a few things in between. And there's various levels of automation that are available, and depending on what platform you're using. Do you have a preferred platform that you suggest? And do you suggest that authors write in a more organic way based on where they are at the time and sending that to their whole list? Or do you suggest authors focus on setting up an automated sequence that drips out over time from the moment, maybe a reader discovers them, gets their book, and then gets onto the list? Is there a preferred way, one over the other? Is there a both and? What's your opinion?
Okay, two big questions there. So
I know, I'm sorry. It's a big topic we're talking about, and I have so many more ping pong balls going around in my brain. I'm trying to keep it simple.
Welcome to my brain. That's fine.
Yes.
The first question, the email marketing service, right? Choosing that. I typically break it down into there's 3 tiers. So the first tier is like your really entry level stuff. So let's put MailChimp in there. They have like 60% market share for good reason. Really easy to get up and running with them, and they have some basic features, easy to use. The second tier is more like intermediate level, and it depends on what market you're in. So there's solutions for Shopify e-commerce owners. There's solutions for SaaS owners, right? It's like the long tail of solutions. And then the third tier is like enterprise solutions, which for our conversation won't be relevant. I always recommend to people you should be looking in that second tier because it's going to give you that room for growth. They're often just as expensive, if not cheaper, than some of those entry-level offers, but they have a lot more features. And those 2 features you want to be really looking for is the ability to segment your audience and search in your database in a really granular level, because that's going to be essential to doing all the cool stuff like segmentation, which answers the second part of your question, and just like a really robust automation builder. And those 2 things will typically go hand in hand. So that's answering that question very quickly. But the second part of your question, while it's still fresh in my mind, about how to structure the communication when someone joins your list, right? So yeah, the answer broadly to that is segmentation. Like you want to make sure that people are getting the right message at the right time. So a big buzzword in email marketing is personalization. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that. What is that? I'm not a big fan of buzzwords personally. Personalization, when you break it down, is really timing and relevance. So if you're sending a message with really good timing and it's really relevant to someone, then that's personalized, right? And it goes a lot further beyond just personalizing the name in the beginning of the message. So me saying, hey, April, and then just sending the same message to everyone, that's not personalization. I mean, some people might call it that. Personalization is segmenting your audience into different groups based on what I like to call the stage of awareness. That's a big one and a really good place for people to start, or their interests. It's another good way to segment people. Or if you are an author with multiple books, which book they've bought, because that's going to be, in some cases, it could be a completely separate market. I've worked with authors before where we've segmented their list into 2 or 3 different groups because the 3 books that they wrote were quite different audiences, right? And you're going to need to make that segmentation. If you just send the same email to everyone, then that's going to reflect in your engagement rates. And yeah, and the value that you're delivering to subscribers. And going back to that original thing, you won't be sending value in every email, because it's not a personalized, timely, relevant message.
It's very email marketing to me. The concept is very simple, right? Someone says yes to your offer online, whether that's a free download of something or they bought something on your site. whatever way they got to your list. But when we start talking about segmenting people, I think the level of understanding for most is fairly narrow. So I'd love for you to expand a little more on what you mean by segmenting and how someone who maybe is a little, I'll just call it gun shy with email marketing, would even consider segmenting. What would that look like for them?
Yeah, you're right. This is where we lose people.
I'm just thinking, if you're driving your car right now and you're thinking like, I'm on the wrong podcast, I need to like hop over somewhere else, stick around. We promise we will iron out all the kinks here because it's very important. I mean, this is the thing, is that it does make your life easier, but it's like building a house. It's figuring out what goes where and then building it. And I know you talk a lot about growing, your background has to do with horticulture. Is that right? Agriculture
Yeah,
is something
it's
with plants.
ecology. Yeah. So
Ecology. Okay.
I was about to jump on that house analogy that you gave. Yeah, I say it's like growing an ecosystem, right? You need to start with the basic building blocks and then grow it from there. So
Well, I was starting with the building. I was like, no, wait, I know he talks about plants and stuff, so I should try to talk about plants, but I don't really know a lot about plants. Like I actually planted some flowers the other day. I'm surprised they're still alive, which is awesome. But I think it's because our landscaping, has sprinklers that go on at night. So yay me. But I need to know to segment your list. Okay. Because I think that, the concept, right? For example, if you're an author and you have 2 books and the 2 books are, let's just call it book A and book B to make it simple. So if people bought book A and they didn't buy book B, then you'd want them to be segmented in a way so that they got awareness about book B, right? And the converse, the opposite would be true. If they bought book B, you would want them to become aware of book A. So segmenting is really as simple as the system, when it's set up, will let based on their contact that click, they got A or they got B, and then it goes through the filter of that system, correct? Is that my understanding? Yes. So, but for someone to be able to technically do that, conceptually, it makes sense. It's like, okay, everybody who likes apples, you're going on this part of the segment. Everyone who likes oranges, you're on that part. But how do you build that? Or is that something that you recommend someone hire somebody like you or an email marketing specialist to get them up and running with segmenting?
I wouldn't hire someone like me to do that. It's pretty
Not
straightforward.
You specifically, I know, but he's like in the PhD level of email marketing. Okay, if there was such a thing, but how would someone hire like their high school intern to do their email segmenting?
The only reason I say that is because it is pretty straightforward. So the way that you would do that, and we spoke about the different levels of email marketing service before, they'll all let you do that, even your really basic stuff. And the way that they do it is through either a tag or a custom field. They might have a different name for it, but basically it allows you to, literally just add a tag that describes different people. So say I've got 2 books and you come into my email list through book A. I'll just give you a tag when you opt in through that form that says book A. And then I go to April's profile in my email marketing system and you'll have the tag book A. So what I can do then is I can say, okay, well, everyone with the tag book A, maybe there's 1,500, 5,000 people that also have this tag book A. That's going to determine what messaging they receive. So I can have an automation that's maybe got, I don't know, 5 or 10 emails in it. And that is triggered when someone gets the tag book A added, right? So that's one way you could do it. And then you could do the same thing for book B, triggers a different sequence. This is your segmentation and how it relates to automation. Is that a good explanation?
That's perfect. And there's a lot of words that end with TION in a row. Segmentation, automation, and I don't know, something else. It was very, very eloquent. And, it's funny because I think that when you said it's very simple, I agree with you. Like I've worked around email marketing for a long time. I'm definitely nowhere as sophisticated as anywhere near what you do, but we work with a lot of authors who are literally just getting their social media up and running, or they're just starting their brand. They're just writing their book that's launching, this particular part of their business. And so it's starting everything from scratch. So it can feel very overwhelming, because not only do you have this new baby book that you need to now tend to and start promoting, you've also got like the technology of social media that you're trying to kind of muster through and making, either hiring out or making designs on Canva or whatever. And then you're also trying to set up your email marketing. So with all of those various pieces, it can feel quite a bit overwhelming. So if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh my God, this just seems like so hard. The good news is that a lot of the effort in email marketing, it's like setting up for a party or getting ready, right? So you get things set up and you think things through one time. And then once it's set up, it runs for you. It's like you're building a little machine for yourself. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the more powerful way to think about it, and especially for authors who have quite a few other things to think about. That some of the advice that goes around is like, send a newsletter every week, right? I'm sure a lot of people have heard that before. That can be great. And like you said before, like, should you send people in a sequence, or should you send a newsletter that's more based on things that are happening in your life right now, or more related to current events? Look, newsletters are great for a lot of reasons without getting into it. But I feel like if you can, I don't know, carve out a week to build out some basic email automation stuff, then you've got a system reliably every time someone opts in, it's just going to send them that same thing. And you don't have to think about it anymore. You can just look at it, the metrics for it, see how it's performing. Exactly like you said, it's like tinkering with a machine, or as I'd say, it's like growing an ecosystem. But
yes. So
can...
now I don't know if I'm going to get too far off the beaten path here with this question. And if so, please feel free to guide me back to the trail. But one of the things that I feel are, often struggles for authors is, how do I get people on my list? Because you could build a beautiful system. You could have the perfect segmented system. Let's say you have 3 books, A, B, and C, and you build this whole thing out, and then you have barely anybody opting in. What would you say they're likely missing or doing wrong in that case that they could fix, so that they could start to see some traction and some people, their lists start to grow? Because it's frustrating to feel like you have some things set up, but then, it's like the saying, if you build it, they will come, but you realize that's not actually really true.
They won't. This question always gets me up on my soapbox. Yeah, you need to be doing everything you can to build your email list. As an author, it's your most valuable asset by far. Like, if you've got, I don't know, 500,000 people follow you on Instagram or Twitter, that's great. But those platforms can be taken away from you at a moment's notice, right? It's platform risk. You don't actually own the audience. And more importantly, you don't own the data. So before, we were talking about adding those tags to people, describing the meanings of where they've come from, or, when you get more advanced with it, even the actions that they take. So then if you send an email to someone, they go back to your site and they read 3 different blog posts, you can give them tags to those blog posts, right? So you're building up a database of meaningful actions, and you can use that data to increase the relevance of the conversation you're having. So to answer your question, how do you actually build the list? I say, flip your perspective. The purpose of your website is to get email subscribers. So nothing else. It's not really about you. It's not about like your story or anything like that. If someone comes to your website, its number one job should be get the email address. And you mentioned something about a free chapter. I think that's a great place. If you go on my site now, I've got a free chapter because I haven't cut, my book only came out recently. I haven't come up with a better idea for, this is an email marketing guide for how to get people on my list. It's a great place to start. Like the conversion rates will be pretty good. And the conversion rate that want to be looking at is called traffic to subscriber conversion. So I say like all the top level marketing efforts you make should be all about getting people back onto your site and then increasing that traffic to subscriber conversion metric. So if you have 100 people come to your site and 10 of them opt in, that's 10% TSC, I'd call it. So I think the industry average TSC across all industries is something abysmal, like 1.95%. So with those same numbers, you'd be adding like 2 subscribers, which is a huge waste of time. So think about it this way. You can either double your traffic very hard, or you can double your TSC, which is relatively easy. So I recommend authors put a lot of thought into what offer they're giving people, like to join their list. And that's probably the easiest way to grow your list, right? That's the best lever you have for that. So the free chapters, they typically they're a good place to start if you don't have a better idea. That's like, you get between 5 and 10% TSC for that for most people. But if you have something that's much more valuable, something that actually helps them implement something from the book, or it really solves a pain point for your readers, beyond what the book does, that's when you're going to see those really high level TSCs, which are in the 15 to 25% range. And they can be done. So for example, in my book, if you just go to my site normally, you'll get the free chapters if you're like a cold traffic. But if you've read my book...
And tell them what your site is so they know where to go to get it.
Yeah. So naturalordersbook.com.
Okay,
Yeah,
naturalordersbook.com. Yeah. So make sure you go there.
Thank you.
Okay.
But
yes,
if you actually,
go ahead.
For those who purchase my book, for example, on Amazon, and a lot of authors do this, throughout the book, there will be a tool in there that helps you plan out these tags that we were talking about earlier. And this is like a really valuable spreadsheet. I've had people say, wow, this really helped me plan out these tags in a way that I wouldn't have thought to do before, right? And the traffic to subscriber conversion for that opt-in, because they're a little bit warmer and they actually have something that'll help them implement the stuff that they've read about, I think that for me converts at about 20%, which is a lot more than your industry average 1.95. Mm-hmm. So another way you can do this if you're an author is if you have a blog post, and this is often the case, and say you're getting organic traffic going to that blog post, the way it'll typically be distributed is like 20% of the pages on your site get like 80% of the traffic. So go to those top 2 or 3 pages that are getting most of your traffic and then look at what they're about. If they're a blog post that is like, April, in your case, maybe it's something like how to get started writing a book, right? Then a great opt-in that you might do for that is a planning system for how to actually get started writing a book, and make it a really valuable thing. Put as much effort into building that opt-in incentive as you did writing that blog post or that chapter of the book, right? And then you don't want to disappoint people. So if I give you my email address in exchange for that, I should receive that thing and think, wow, this is really, really valuable. Go above and beyond. Like I also give away a free video course, like the professionally made video course. It's got like 8 parts to it. So it's just about like over delivering on expectations. And that's the best way to build your email list, to cut a long story short.
Yeah. So making sure that you have something valuable that people will opt in for, and over delivering. And, there's lots of ways to drive traffic, steer traffic. And that's what social media, I would say, for those who are newer on social media, I've heard a saying, which I think is a great way to think about social media, is be a content producer, not a content consumer, because it seems like you go on social media and scroll and scroll and scroll, the people get lost in that world where if you're not delivering some sort of content, then you're the one who is getting content delivered to them. So be valuable on social media and let people get to your website through some of those means. Paid ads work well. What other things have you found for driving traffic that work well for you?
Or driving traffic? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I do Amazon ads. I feel like I think about it in terms of platforms, right? So what platforms are you present on, and what
Mhm.
platforms can you most easily peel away traffic to come onto your own email list?
Yeah.
It's really the way I think about it. I mean, they call them the walled gardens for a reason, right?
Mhm.
You want to build your own walled garden, to extend the ecosystem analogy,
Mhm.
and you want to get people from some other platform onto your own. So typical advice for startups and that is to focus on one channel and really own it. So if you got it, I mentioned for an Instagram following, say you know your audience is on Instagram, just put your head down and focus on Instagram, master that, and then peel away as many people as possible onto your own email list. And that'll be your insurance policy for when inevitably that platform goes away or kicks you off,
Mhm.
or policy updates change or something, right?
Mhm.
For me, a big one at the moment is Amazon ads. Amazon ads are
Mhm.
working pretty well for me, because this is an underrated channel for authors,
Mhm.
because I think Amazon's the second biggest search engine after Google.
Mhm.
So if you optimize your book for placement in Amazon and you're selling a decent number of copies, I mean, I look at my impressions that I get on my Amazon ads. It's thousands and thousands a day of my book, right? That's far better post reach than I would ever get on any social media platform, right?
Mhm.
I think, like, I don't know what the stats are now, but the average post reach for Facebook is abysmal. And I think
Yeah.
this is true for a lot of other platforms. They're diminishing returns. So you really focus on one, put your head down. Yeah, absolutely. Like what you said, provide value for people all the time. There's no point being on social media if you're scrolling. You've got to be posting, and you've got
Right.
to have a view to get them back to your site and to convert them, get them on your list.
So I want to kind of bring it full circle here, if I can, because it seems like, of course, we can all agree how valuable email marketing is. And when you can see that, oh my gosh, it's almost like having another employee or an assistant, that if you can build it the right way, it's going to be working for you 24/7, sending out
Mm,
the emails that you already told it you wanted to send on a certain time sequence and to the right people at the right time. But if you're an author and you have just one book, and this is one thing we talk to our authors about a lot, is the ecosystem of your book, because your book leads to other things. And so, how do you really make your email marketing profitable when you're starting with an opt-in or a book? What are some of the logical ways that people can monetize this email list? What are some of the things you've done or that you would recommend? I'll call it low-hanging fruit, some simple ideas that people could kind of use, authors could use to give more value to people that are on their list, but also monetize it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really what the value of email is all about, right? It depends on what industry and what your book is about, but let's just say typical author business looks something like: you have your content that people subscribe to your list for. The first thing that you'll probably sell them is the book. This is sometimes called, in customer value optimization, a tripwire. So it's like a low price product that you're first offering people that gets people over the edge, gets that first initial conversion. From there you'll want to lead them into a core offer. So what does a core offer look like for you as an author? It's a question you have to really think about. For a lot of people, this is um, courses, digital online courses. It seems to work pretty well. Maybe it's group coaching. Maybe it's something else, right? Some sort of training, workshops. Think about a way to expand on the value that you've spoken about in your book, a way of repurposing that knowledge that you have, and then delivering it to your audience at scale and at a way that's worth a lot more to them than the way it is presented in the book. That's going to be your core offer. And from there is they sometimes called profit maximizer. So something from there for those really dedicated fans. If you have all three of those things, and people are going to sort themselves naturally into, um, your most profitable subscribers, your most profitable customers, and your least profitable, right? You might have 80% of people only ever buy the book and never go any further than that. But then 20% of people might buy that core offer, and then 20% of those people might end up buying that profit maximizer. So you're going to have a distribution, a Pareto 80-20 distribution or something like it, where you have a significant lifetime value for a small portion of your list. Now, the question is, that's the end result, right? But how do you actually get there? This is the big question, right? This is what I specialize in. So I said before, you don't ever want to annoy people. You don't want to be sending spam. So a lot of people, they have this broad idea of customer value optimization and turning their subscribers into buyers. And the way sometimes people go about doing that is someone will join their list and then immediately hit them with an offer for your course or your workshop or your group coaching, whatever that looks like for you. That's absolutely the wrong way to go about it. And a really powerful method that I think works really well for a lot of authors is something that I talk about in my book. I call it the awareness automation. So we spoke about segmentation before, and we're going to get into a little bit of meat here in terms of how email strategy works. But we talked about the way that you can tag people when they come onto your list. So typically, if someone's read a blog post or they've read something on social media and they've come to your site and they've subscribed to your list, they're what I would call problem aware. And there's 5 stages of awareness, right? So there's unaware, there's problem aware, there's solution aware, there's product aware, and there's most aware. So a problem aware person, they're aware that they have a problem, but they're not sure how to solve it. A solution aware person knows that there are solutions out there, but they don't know which solution is right for them. A product aware person knows that there is a product that will help them solve that problem. And a most aware person is actively assessing your product, right? So what you want to do with your email marketing strategy is progress people through those stages of awareness. And the beauty of segmenting people into these different discrete stages of awareness is you can make sure that you're actually sending value at every single stage. So April, say you came onto my list and you wanted to learn more about email marketing, right? And you are problem aware. So you know vaguely that you need to do more with email. My communication that I'll send to you on my email list will be kind of all the stuff we've been talking about on this podcast, all the different things you can do with email, like some of the basic beginner stuff. And then from there, if you've engaged with all those emails and I know you're interested, and I can literally just look if you've opened emails or clicked on emails, read blog posts that I've sent you, that I've sent respectfully and not too many at a time.
Right.
I can then use that. I can then add a tag, as we were talking about before, that says, okay, it's maybe April is solution aware. And then what that can do is that can trigger a solution aware sequence, take you out of the problem aware sequence, put you into the solution aware sequence. And then the communication might be a little bit different. Instead of talking about high level email marketing concepts, we might start talking about, okay, how do we actually get started building this stuff? From there, we can start introducing, if you're interested in that, then we can graduate you possibly to product aware. And that's when you're going to start introducing your products. That's where I might say, hey, I have a book, or I have a course where you can learn more about this. And by dividing people into these different buckets, you're never spamming them. You're always providing value because these people have self-selected as being interested in each different stage, and your engagement rates are going to be really good. And more than that, your conversion's going to be much better than would have been otherwise.
It's so exciting to know that there is a machine that can be built, and that when it's built properly, it can be an asset to your business and help it grow. So I think the bottom line with all of this, for those of you who are listening and you're like, oh my God, I set up a MailChimp like 5 years ago and I've never logged in since then. Or, I have my free chapter going, but I don't even know who's opted in. There are stages. You don't have to eat the elephant in one bite. It's little stages along the way. And so the first step is just log into your email marketing system if you haven't done so in a while, or get Matt's book and learn about email automation. And the link to the book is going to be in the show description, but it's called Natural Orders, Email Marketing Automation Strategy for Small Online Business. And I think it's great that you've provided so much value in your book, in the opt-in, which is there. If you get the Kindle version, it links right through to the opt-in as well. And his free course, which he also mentioned. And it's just knowing that being in business for yourself as an author, you are in business for yourself. And so learning some of the skills of running your small business, because it's a book business, if you want to grow it, you got to learn some of these skills of having an online business. And email marketing is a really important skill. And just know there are people out there to help you. There are books that can help you, courses that can help you, experts here like Matt who can help you. And for those who have little time, but a lot of money, you can hire people to help you. And I always say, if you have a lot of time and a little money, then you can teach yourself. And that's sort of the way the triangle always works, right? Is like you either, and if you have a lot of time and a lot of money, then, go on a vacation. So let's just wrap this up here. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Matt, and to follow you and get on your email list and start learning about all of this? Where would be that first step for them to get into learning more about email automation?
Yeah, so that same site that I mentioned earlier, that's naturalordersbook.com. I think if you go there,
naturalordersbook.com. Perfect.
that's it. And that'll have information about the book itself, but that'll also just be my website. So if you click the little home button in the top left, it'll take you to the home, and it'll be all about me and what I do. And I've got thousands of words of articles and stuff on the site, and ways, opt-ins and stuff, resources to help you get started. But probably the easiest overview, and the reason I wrote the book is to, help people answer this question of, look, what is this email thing? How do I get started? And what does advanced email look like? What should I be aiming for with this, right? If I invest time in setting this thing up, what does the end result look like ideally? So that's what it's designed to answer. And if you go to naturalordersbook.com.
I love it. And you know what? I think that one key point that you made that I just want to bring back around to sort of hit it home is that while it's great to build your Instagram following, or it's great to build your Facebook page, or wherever you're engaging with people who are your readers, you don't own those platforms. Those platforms can go away overnight. And I know people have grown large YouTube, channels that got banned for one reason or another, and overnight they lost their entire business. And so when you focus on building things on your own platform, on your own website, and your own email list, those are contacts that can never be taken away from you, and a community that you can build that will last. And I think that's a real exciting thing, because when you're spending time to build a business, you want to build it on a firm foundation. And I think that's really the key, because I can't imagine how devastating it would feel to have spent years and years and hours and thousands of dollars to have it all be taken away because I hadn't thought that, Instagram was going to disappear, or YouTube was going to block me, or something like that. And the truth is, it happens. And I know people it's happened to. And it's being a responsible business owner. That's what I'll boil it down to that. So thank you for being part of the show today. It's been amazing talking to you. You clearly have so much knowledge about email marketing. I hope people go to Natural Orders Book and grab your book, get to your website, and learn more about email marketing, because being an author is great. It's amazing to have a book, but it's also even more amazing when you can build a business from your book and know that people are reading it and you are also profiting from it. So this is one piece of the puzzle. We hope that today this was a valuable conversation to you. Stay tuned and we will wrap it up, and be sure to check the show notes to get over to Matt's website.
Thanks, April. This has been great.
So this has been another episode of the iBook Podcast. I'm April O'Leary signing off. Be sure to hop on over to o'learypublishing.com to start your author adventure and see what writing a book could do for you in your profession, in your career, and what doors it might open. We thank our guests for being a part of the show today, and be sure to subscribe to podcasts here on YouTube. We look forward to serving you and helping you get your book out into the world.